Hey, hey, how are you? Great.
Yeah, no problem.
Gabe, I think we have 5:30. Do we have 5:30?
If you want to say 5:30, it's.
Yeah.
It's good.
Okay, it's 5:30. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. It's 5:30 p.m. Here we are in City Hall in Harlingen. Let me go ahead and read the conflict of interest statement that we read at the beginning of every meeting. Under state law, a conflict of interest exists if a council member or certain members of that person's family has a qualifying financial interest in an agenda item. Members with a conflict of interest cannot participate in the discussion nor vote on the agenda item. Are there any known conflicts of interest to discuss at this time? I see a negative. So let's start off the meeting with citizen communication input. Do we have any today?
We do. We have one, Mr. Desi Martinez.
Hi, welcome to the new board members. I've been in many boards myself. For 50 years, half a century more, but I've been loving the community. I'm using it as a prop. My business is economics, economist, doing economic development. I've done several projects down. It's a builder, project manager. Great job, government job. Indirectly, not directly. Different board control analysis. But 4B is one of my specialties, also 4A and sales tax and government projects. Especially when it deals with industries and businesses. And as you can see, the 4B, according to the controller's summary statement, and the Attorney General provides a manual about this thing. Available on the website. Give you the specifications of the eligibility of the project, etc. We can work with private industries and business. You have $90 million that you're working with, more or less, with the expenses of prior approval and trying to update and build a whole doubling of cost in most cases. And that here in 4 reasons developing industries. And also doing 4A projects jointly with the corporation down the street. And cultivating communities. We've established cultivating communities in Harlingen by creating and calling it improvement zone. But it also is, and I know you've been sold, it's going to be sold, continue to sell, that we need to do the parks and that's good. To do a destination. We should. Everybody should. We all should do this. But we should also balance it with economic development, as it says in the law. Because there's so much need out here. Like you're going to be discussing the need here and doubling the cost of 2 major projects you're all undertaking out there in the industries. We have small industries that are hurting, that need your open-minded openness to participating in 4B projects. And now that is infrastructure and others, water, sewer, drainage, etc. I've worked throughout the 50 years I've worked on in different types of programs. Congressman Gonzalez, this one in the newspaper, wrote that $11 million came down for a specific program of infrastructure, and this area got zero. Also got it because they put money into it, into getting shovel-ready projects. We don't. We can have balance and help our industries that are sitting out there and need your help. I appreciate that and good luck with your decision making.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that is it for our citizen communication.
That's all we have tonight?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item number 1, consideration and possible action to elect a president and if needed, a vice president.
Mr. Vice President, we put this item on the agenda because there is a vacancy in the president position. Generally, the vice president moves up to president, but that's a directive of the board. So what we would need to do right now is just have nominations for the president position. And then after that, you would take a vote. And if it does create a vacancy, then we'd need to fill the second position also.
Understood. We have a lot of new board members. I'd like to maybe have some conversations with all of them. That's okay. Before we,
Yeah, absolutely.
why don't we open it up for talking? We have some new people on the board that actually we did have one meeting prior to doing this process, which we probably should have done, but anybody have comments they want to talk about?
I don't have any at the moment. I'm not sure if any of the other board members, how they, any discussion topics?
Well, I think we do need a president and a vice president. I think that was an option to bring it up here.
Currently, I've served as vice president for a little while. If the board is willing to accept me, I would be willing to move up to be president to serve. And so that's something I would be willing to do and help anybody with any questions. Then we'd have to fill the vice president, I believe.
That is correct.
Would it be appropriate to keep a motion for you to do that?
Absolutely.
Done deal.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. Now, let's talk about vice president. Do we have anybody that's once again,
Can I nominate someone?
I'll nominate myself.
Yes.
I was gonna nominate you.
you absolutely can.
Yeah. Nominate.
Sure.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There we go. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations. Appreciate it. Number 2, let's talk action item 2, presentation and possible action on the improvements to the Tony Butler Golf Course. We do have an attachment.
Craig is going to make this presentation.
Good evening, Craig Cook, Assistant City Manager. Mr. President, board members, mayor, city manager, and commissioners in the attendance. Welcome. First of all, allow me to thank you once again for supporting the 2023 Tony Butler renovations project with the $2 million that you gave to us at the last meeting. I'm happy to report that the City Commission approved the award of the contract to Mid-America Golf and Landscape on April 19th, with the direction for me to return to this board to request $400,000 to fully fund the contract. The award amount, as you see, was $4,951,314.37. You may recall that at the last meeting, I referred several times to there being $2.8 million available from the original 3.1. That was in error. Robert's report later in the meeting confirmed that the remaining balance actually was or is $2,580,800, a difference of $219,200. Mid-America was asked, and they did extend their bid so that we could make this award in very late March, sorry. But they also increased their price by $244,597. $191,992 of that was for price increases for the irrigation piping and wiring and the sand for the sand greens, and $52,605 for the paspalum grassing for all of the affected areas. And so you see that the shortfall is $370,000 and change. It has 3 components: the price increase with the bid validity letter, the $219,200 of the difference between the $2.8 million that I was asserting and Robert's actual $2,580 and some. And then we had about $93,000 of contingency, meaning when I asked for the $2 million, I really only needed about $93,000 less than that, but I would have used the $93,000 of contingency for a change order or 2 along the way during construction. Now we won't have that. The difference between asking for $400,000 and the $370 is about $29,500. So that would be the contingency that we would have if you would please approve $400,000 more.
Okay, I know how this must look to the board. We just got $2 million from this body just a few weeks ago. But there was a change in the pricing structure from the contractor to hold that price. And just to give you an example of what we're facing with increases in cost, we had gone out for bids for a multimodal facility. The architect had estimated $4 million for that project. The project came in $3.6 million over budget. So we had to reject all bids and figure out what we're going to do. This project, when it initially was created by the commission and approved by this board, the architect had estimated everything to cost $3 million. That was just about pre-COVID when that happened. And so it took him some time to develop it. We went out for bids. The bids came in at $6 million. We made some major modifications to the funding, to the project scope, which brings us to where we are today with that scope. So we are asking for you to consider awarding the additional $400,000 to get us to the finish line for this particular project and get it completed and then move on to the next one.
We also established the start and end date. Of course, they're starting work now, meaning they're buying material, placing orders and that sort of thing. They will be on site no later than the 25th of September, which is just after two tournaments that we have on the 9th and the 21st, or the Friday before. So they'll start on the 25th of September and they'll finish up sometime in April. The contract completion date is 30 April. But that's good planting time, March and April, good planting time for the Paspalum.
So let me ask a question. You had mentioned the 4.95131437 was approved by the city commission.
Yes, that is the award amount.
Okay. When they approved that, they knew it was short to 400?
They did,
Yes.
and they directed me to come back to this
Okay.
board.
Yeah, understood.
You know, this is a project that's been ongoing, and to stop now would not be appropriate. As hard as it is to take an extra 400,000, I would recommend to the board that it be approved, because stopping a project over 400K at this point, it would put everybody back. The timeframes and everything else that we need to get it up to par so it can start generating income on its own and be self-sufficient. So I would encourage the board members to consider, as difficult as it may be to swallow this and do it. I mean, the alternative, I don't think would be good, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
So I'm just looking at the balance. This is from the last budget that you provided. I'm looking at the 621. Is that where it's coming from?
Oh, I'd prefer you ask Robert those precise questions.
He's here. He can answer that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have the funds right.
Robert Reeves on the finance director for the city. Are you referring to the previous financial?
Yeah, this statement.
So, I have some updated financial statements, but if I can.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this.
So on the destination part, we used to have amounts of $2.5 million allocated to the forgot what you call that.
The amphitheater.
So that freed up $2.5 million out of the Lansing Hill Park. So that money is available now. So as of March 31st, the numbers for that look. So unassigned fund balance is $1,701,000. So instead of the $621,000, less the $2 million that was allocated for the Tony Butler last meeting. So that brings the Tony Butler at 4.5 million. So then with the additional 4 million, that'll take it to the 4.9. So altogether, the board has $7.3 million that has been committed to the different projects, which is the convention center debt, the hike and bike trail, the Tony Butler golf course, and the Lansing. So at this point in March, there is 1.7 million in unassigned fund balance, so that those 100,000 would come out of that 1.7 million.
Let me go back just one step real quick, just for some of the new board members. The destination park that Robert's talking about came before this board quite a few years ago. And it was in 3 different phases. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gabe, but it was in 3 phases. Phase number 1 is already completed. It's the park over there by the Boys and Girls Club with all the new. Phase number 2 included a running path, and amphitheater, I think was in 2 or maybe 3.
It was in 2.
And so all that money for all 3 of those were committed. And what he's saying is,
Excuse me, it also included the adaptive ball field.
correct,
So there were 3 different components. And then I came to the board because the amphitheater was supposed to be built on one of the parking lots.
Yep.
Facing the wrong direction. So we asked that we cancel that because we wouldn't be able to use that
correct.
for any of the venues that we would host there. So it would have been a waste of money, in my opinion. So we canceled that. And then
So-
that freed up to spend.
Yeah,
on-
so that was on the books for this board as approved, committed, and then that got relieved. So that's kind of where there's a little wiggle room here with this added expense. Well, I think we're still in pretty decent shape. And we're going to talk the destination park in the next action item.
Mhm.
Any other, now, when we took the vote, last time we all got together, it wasn't unanimous. Does anybody want to talk for the other way?
I have a question.
Sure.
I mean, has the golf course developed a plan to show that they will be self-sufficient?
We are developing that plan. This is budget time for the city. Jeff is working that out as we speak. We've also are identifying additional revenue streams to include marketing, advertising, I should say, advertising. We have about 28 or so little storage units where people can store their golf cart for $350 a year. And so that will bring in some revenue that we haven't had in the last year or so, or 18 months or so. We did it in the past. We just have kind of fallen away, and we're going to pick that back up. We do some other things. We're planning to broaden the meal variety at the clubhouse. Great hamburgers and cheeseburgers, but maybe a pizza or a burrito or something that's fairly simple to cook and to prepare. So yes, we are all focused on being break even this year and solidly black going forward.
Now, the one thing to consider is that this project is going to shut down 1 through 18
For September through April.
so that's going to impact the revenue stream. We are going to have 19 through 27 open, but that's a smaller component of the golf course. So we're still going to be generating revenue, but it probably is going to be difficult to break even this year. But because we have a pretty good reason because of the construction.
But in the future,
Yes, it should. Matter of fact, right now it's on par to break even.
Yes.
But because of the construction that's upcoming, that's going to hamper that revenue stream. But once we reopen, we should have pristine greens.
Yep.
And a new irrigation system. So it should be an attraction.
It's on par. I'm sure that you didn't mean to put that in. They'd be on par. The citizens of Harlingen have heard about the golf course, everything and the needs, et cetera. It's time to put this project across the goal line. It's time to get it done for the citizens of Harlingen. So, the confidence level in City Hall and everybody can be there. They don't need to hear that it's short or, whatever. I mean, it happens. Costs are just a fact of life, and increases happen in every single industry every single day. Just my recommendation is to get it done.
Go ahead, Jen.
What was the total cost originally for the golf course? What I'm getting at is I thought this committee approved $3 million a year ago.
You approved 3.1 in the beginning. You approved 2 million month and a few days ago. We're asking for 400,000 tonight. So that's a total of 5.5 million. 4.9 of it is in this award. And as I briefed last time, it also paid for the design of this construction project of 215 or so thousand, and also paid for our new raw water pump and skid that's going to be installed in about 2 weeks and operational.
The cost that was estimated by Jeff Bloom, who is a renowned architect for golf courses, was $3 million pre-pandemic.
Understand all that, I just make sure everybody knew that this committee. has-
Yeah. The all in,
This was not the original plan. The plan was to help fund the improvements. But now it looks like this whole project, my only concern is, I'm not against fixing up the golf course. I think I've always said that. I think it's important. I think it's, something that the city can we can draw individuals from outside the city to help spend dollars here. They're helping our constituents fund other city services. I definitely understand that, because every dollar that we put into the golf course, we have less money to put into something that might pop up that we can try to help fund. I am concerned about some of the other projects that we actually we entertained the funding from the Humane Society last meeting. But it looks like we're okay with that. We're still in the 60-day notice period.
Yes, it's gonna take some, I need to get some more information from the Humane Society, because that needs to be published. I'm still waiting on that. So as soon as I get it, we'll be on par to actually advertise.
So if I've heard everything correctly,
the
4B is funding
the
5.55.
the all in for y'all is 5.5. That's right.
And the one thing to also note is that we're taking the funding, if it's approved, from available revenues that we have budgeted for this year. We're not going to put the 4B in a deficit situation. So
Well, I think we're ahead on
we
revenue anyway.
we are, but we're going to consider another project later that could change that, but we're not going to recommend that.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
For those that didn't, present at the commission meeting, I think that the commission is also very supportive of the golf course, and wants to see it succeed, and kind of like Mike mentioned, I mean, you're already in it, so let's complete it. However, I think that I would recommend to this board to have some kind of metric and have some updates. And I think it would be nice for the golf course for Jeff to come, on a quarterly basis and report back to this board on the status and how it's going. So that way you can feel comfortable with the decision and see those improvements. And I think that our community would feel a little more invested if there's updates along the way, especially when it closes and you get a lot of heat about, okay, now it's not making, there's no revenue, but how the improvements are coming along. They don't necessarily need to come to the commission, but they come to this board, and then maybe the two of you can kind of share that with the manager to share with the commission, just so that way we're all on the same page. Because that's a lot of money to be given to just one project.
Yes, ma'am.
However, I think it's going to be in the future, will be better for it and it'll be successful. But I think that there has to be accountability and communication and transparency along the way. Because when I talk to constituents, they're either 100% for it or 100% against it, and there's no middle. And so I think the way that we explain and are engaging, right, with the community is by showing that, you didn't just give a blank check, but you're asking for updates. That would be my recommendation.
And Mayor, if I will, I'd make two additions. Rest assured that fingers were wagged in our faces at the commission meeting of, you better make this happen or else. And we heard that loud and clear. Thank you, Sergeant Major. And the other comment I would make is the Golf Advisory Board, the Pan American Golf Association, I think I got that right. And many others are very motivated to do whatever they can to help us along and get this thing going and get it constructed. And then, of course, come out and play on our Superior Golf Course when it's completed. So lots of support.
Well, thank you, everybody, for all your input. Anybody on the board have any other comments?
Well, the other comment I would make is I don't disagree with anything it said, but to the mayor's point, you know, the constituents need to know that all this stuff piled up on city. You know, we're trying to make up for 20-30 years, you know, the water system, you know, we had to do other things. We didn't pay attention to that or for whatever reason it was. I don't think it was intentional. But we're paying for it now, and if we're $400,000 shy, I would concur that, you know, we should do this, but I want everybody to know how much we spend on. Because we do have some ownership, and I hear they offers want to, you know, post a fundraiser for the May site or the site. So,
You do?
oh,
Oh.
Just planting that seed.
So
I would move it.
I want to answer. Both of you, sir,
Yes, Commissioner.
Javier and Jeff. Once we start going from here on forward, let's make sure that the expenses for the golf course are for the golf course. These are the two examples that I have for you. One, the water that's being used for the irrigation. Make sure that's not being mixed with the golf course getting stuck with the bill that belongs to the park. The same thing goes to the electricity. Those meters have to be updated and make sure that they are measuring, they're taking proper numbers. Okay, because in the past, I've heard it before. We're paying for the water, we're paying for the electricity that's being used in Victory Park. And we're looking like we're further down the hole than what we're not. So I'm asking you three gentlemen, make sure that that is done correctly.
Yes, sir. We'll look into that.
And you assign those
We'll confirm that. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
I'm confident that those, excuse me.
Go ahead.
I'm confident that those in charge of this project are going to keep the contractor on time, online, and to ensure that his costs are kept at the quoted amount. I'm sure they have in place procedures to do that. Personally, I'm not even a golfer, but I understand the value that this is done to the city. Who knows, in 10 or 20 years, the city can turn around and sell it at a profit. And the only way you're going to sell it at a profit is, well, if you can't sell it, well, that's a good idea, but at least you'll have a viable golf course to show off. And again, continue attracting people, so.
I would just say you can't sell donated product.
So if you want some golf lessons, now's the time. Golf Pro is just right there. You could make that part of the.
Yeah. So,
So hearing everybody's comments, thank you all for the input. Appreciate it. I think everybody's had an opportunity. Are we ready for a motion?
Absolutely, make a motion to approve.
Did we have one already?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a second.
All in favor of funding the additional $400,000 for the Harlingen Golf Club, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in our next summary.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Item number 3, consideration and possible action to approve additional funding for the construction of Lonsea Hill Destination Park Phase 2.
Good evening, board members, president, mayor, city commission. My name is Javier Mendez, for the record, the park director. I don't know if y'all have in your package the breakdown of the project, but I do have copies here if y'all need. We do have. Okay, great. Well, I'll give you another copy. Thank you. So like other projects that we bid out, the proposals came in overbid, over whatever we estimated. And so in this project here, our funding, or construction estimate was 1.6 million. The bid came in at 2.9 million. So there's a difference of 1.3 million. And so the biggest cost of the project is the adaptive field, which came in at 1.7 million. We had estimated, and we spoke to Hellas, which is the general contractor who builds sports fields with artificial turf all over the world. And so their quote was a lot less. So we don't know what happened, why the cost almost doubled. But so we're short, like I mentioned, 1.3 million. So we're asking the board if we could increase the funding and pay for the difference.
So let me start off by asking a few questions about the adaptive field. I've struggled over the past 2 years understanding the demand for it. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So what we've done is we partnered with the school district. And so the destination park, our original idea was to promote all-inclusive facilities or components for the public. And so that's what we did. The playground that we built there is an all-inclusive playground, and it was the first here in Cameron County and probably the Valley. So we've kind of branched off from that, and that's our whole idea, is to increase inclusivity in that park for the general public and for the surrounding communities.
So I guess understanding that 1.7, I mean, what if we just fixed it up, made better seating? I mean, I've been to that park a bunch. I mean, it's a lot of money.
It is. And one of the things I'd like to point out is that we're going to have another request coming up from the Humane Society that we agreed to do. If we fund this deficit, that would wipe out this board until next fiscal year. What I was going to recommend, because I think what the Humane Society is doing is important, especially for those that can't afford to get their pets spayed or neutered, is I was going to suggest that we not eliminate the adaptive field, but just pause it for now and only do the trail. We've already met, Javier has met with the irrigation district, and we've acquired the right of way for the trail to go through their property around the park.
So if we pause the adaptive field and we relook at that and just say, let's say, for instance, you can't get a wheelchair over there right now, right? And we came up with a different maybe solution, not a 1.7, but something a little more reasonable. Is that something you guys can do during the pause?
What did the main say?
I think it was 140 or 180. I don't recall exactly offhand.
So the 1.7 includes special turf, bleachers, lighting, shade,
Fence, I believe.
the fence. I mean, is there any way we can, maybe hold off on the lighting of the adaptive field?
We could.
I mean, maybe put in the infrastructure for that, but if we can come up with 140 grand worth of savings, and we can fund both, right? Maybe we don't order the pole yet, but the infrastructure that we install is there when we start to develop some income.
So the lighting is 168,500.
That'll give us bleachers. That'll give us a church, which is
Yes, sir.
a big chunk of it.
Correct. Now, we visited.
All those costs are going to go up.
Right. Brownsville has an adaptive field that they built by the same contractor. And, but it's, what it did was they had a little area that was left over in their park. And so they built that, baseball, well, actually, it's a multi-purpose field, for special needs. And they have a group which is called Down by the Border. And so they created a league. And so that's what I met with the school district about, was see if we can create our own league here in Harlingen, through their, special ed department. And so he told me yes. And he said that he can reach out to San Benito and they can create their own league. So we can have a league playing against each other. But I guess what my point was going to be is that field is really small. It's not really a design or a sports field, right? A pony size or anything like that. So maybe we can reduce the area that we turf and see what that would cost. Just the infield, not the outfield. Because those are the areas where the kids would be using, really.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, I'm taking.
Okay.
I think when we originally discussed this, there were some committee members that was the project that they wanted. The thought was maybe to use the outfield as maybe a soccer type area as well. It's not just used as a baseball field.
Correct.
Multi-purpose, because coding would be throughout the whole field, so I don't know about that, but if we reduce the lighting, I mean, during the summer, spring and summer, we've got light till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, so I don't know if we need lighting. I mean, we're not gonna have our kids out there till 11 o'clock at night. I don't know if we want to, but if we can, just trying to figure out how to make this work.
Right.
So.
Have y'all explored any grant opportunities for these types of projects?
We can definitely look into,
While you're putting on.
right.
Oh, yeah, another thing, just, so when you went to the school district, did you go to the school district to ask for part of the fund? I'm just trying to understand a little bit more on this whole project. Did you go to the school district to ask for partnership or for some funding for this, or?
No, it wasn't for funding. So it was just really for partnership to create a program here in the city.
Okay, so that this can be utilized.
Correct.
Okay. Because the need is definitely there.
Chairman,
So that,
can I make a point? Just that Texas Parks and the Wildlife on August 1st receives application to cities of this side for up to $1 million. There are options. I don't know what they've spent there 2 years already. Other projects they're doing. Texas Parks and Wildlife is a variety of programs, and we've done some with them and the Baptist group, etc. I think we do need to be more cost conscious and have options as we grow in the demand, but because we have other needs. We definitely have other needs. And jobs is a quality of life also to this community. In fact, it is the life, the economy, this manufacturing and jobs creation system in other areas. And if information I gave you explains that in general from the controller's office. You can look at the Attorney General's office manual on 4B, 4A, and it tells you what you can do to help our economy. The destination is exactly, I also do in my economic work throughout this county. But it's got to have balance, and I'm glad for the point of views you're making of maybe doing a step by step, because we know that commitment to the accountability of others. I had a special needs grandson. We already taken to the park. I don't know where we're going. I have a special needs grandson and autism, heavy, critical autism. But I think these gentlemen need to be more conscious of bringing more balance to our economy. Through this board and the other board, and of course, the other, first and others. There's an opportunity now to develop our economy because the other metro systems down the road.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, what I would recommend is that you allow us to proceed with the trail and perhaps come back with some options on the adaptive ball field.
Yeah, just to recalibrate me, we've approved these things.
Yes, you have,
You're here because there was an upper and you're asking for an upper.
because there was a shortfall in the funding.
And I think as a board, we're kind of saying we'd like to pause the adaptive field for the city to relook at it, maybe wicker it a little bit and come back. This wouldn't stop us from pursuing the other things on this phase two, would it?
No, and what we could do is, obviously, if we wait till the end of the calendar year to actually get additional funding from the 4B, there's probably going to be a cost increase because we've seen that throughout our projects that we've had here at the city. So, but the thing is, we made that decision with the soccer complex years ago where we took off the topsoil.
Okay.
That was about $600,000 at the time, and that was a big mistake. We're having to deal with those consequences of having a rock to play on, and it's not very soft. And so, if we're going to do this, I think we need to do it right the first time. So,
Okay. Do we have any other comments from the board?
I'm in agreement with you. 1,800,000 almost seems a little too much, maybe finding a more economic way to. Of course, I am a high school teacher. I love kids. I dedicate my life work to children. I work with special needs kids. But 1,800,000, maybe, I mean, there are so many ways that we can find happiness for them, for lack of a better word. Well, risking
Thank you.
our entire budget.
Thank you for the input.
Sir, has this contractor ever done anything else for the city of Harlingen? Any other work that you might know of?
Yes, matter of fact, he did phase one.
Phase one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did he have any cost overrun in that as significant as this?
No.
Okay, so this is like a shocker to everybody.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
we received two bids for this project. The other one was at 3.2 million.
Okay,
So Peacock General Contractors was the lowest bidder.
so he did a low bid and then he came back significantly higher. Obviously, cost overrun is the fact of life, but this is pretty significant, obviously, right? So did he give any kind of itemization, any kind of anything as to why exactly he came up with that figure?
No, I mean, we asked him for schedule of values, and so we looked it over. We reviewed it with the architect. But they're just, the price of material has increased, substantially. So but we didn't see anything really out of line from his schedule of values.
As a builder, I'm inclined to disagree with him. Prices have actually been going down. Now, if this was 2021, early 2022, I'd probably believe him. But prices have gone down. Now he might just be adding profit on top of that. Is there anything in your opinion that could be cut out of this without sacrificing quality to the children and safety?
Well, I mean, like Mr. Guevara's mentioned was the lighting, if we do have events there for these kids, it more than likely would be during the day. And so we probably wouldn't have tournaments or events in the evening. So.
Could we delay any tournaments or anything like that, or not tournaments, but the lighting for a year and a half, and then come back and revisit that
We could.
To get this project going and completed? How many children would actually participate, sir, in this or take part in this? I'm concerned about the children, right? Because all of us are adults here talking pennies and dollars, but forgetting the child that actually to them this isn't about the money. It's about inclusion.
Right. And so, I mean, it is not targeted just at the special needs, right? So when we design, just to give you an example, when we designed the playground at Lancia Hill, we looked at everyone, right? So adults, children, and that's why we designed it to where you could get up to the top, 8-foot height in a wheelchair. So it doesn't have to be a kid in a wheelchair, it could be an adult.
Good.
And so they can play with their peers and so on. So that's what we want here, right? So for special needs and their peers. So
We've actually had tournaments, well, not tournaments, but events for special needs kids. But we had them at the tennis center when Tom Wilson was our director for Parks and Recreation.
Yes, sir.
And those were held during the day.
How confident are you that the contractor, that's the final figure? He won't come back in, 6 months and say, I need another 100,000. Is he going to be, okay, this is how much you're getting and completed and be done with it?
the only way that I think that we would have a change order if it was our error, but we wouldn't change anything to the contract based on his pricing. But if it was our error, then of course we would make that
You'd
change
agree with
order.
So once again, calibrate me a little bit. We approved a dollar amount for phase 2.
Yes.
And the bid that came in for all this is over. If we put a pause on a specific line item, that doesn't, you're still allowed to use the funds, the full amount of funds. So if like John was saying, if the lighting, if you so choose to do lighting, I mean, you can.
We can take that component out and that'll save some money so that we can look at the request from the Humane Society, try to fund that.
Okay.
From the savings.
Any other discussions on this? So I'd like to make a motion that the board considers putting a pause on the Lon C. Hill Destination Park Phase 2, the adaptive field portion of that. Put a pause so that the city can come back and take another look at an option for this board to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Absolutely, go ahead.
Do you need to put a pause on it, or can you just remove the lighting feature and then come back to
Well,
us later?
Well, we can do both. We can actually pause the entire project. Or we can just take out the lighting component, but somebody would need to have to second his motion in order to have discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
But that was to pause the entire project.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a motion to take out the component of the lighted
What?
trail.
excuse me, if I could just, you made a motion. Somebody either has to second it or it fails.
It got seconded.
It did get
My
seconded,
motion was just to pause the adaptive field.
right?
Yeah.
And you would have to vote that either up or down before you could have a second motion.
Okay. So we have did everybody understand my motion? Should I repeat it?
It's just to remove the adaptive ball field, to pause it.
To pause, yeah, my motion was on the Lon C. Hill Destination Park Phase 2 to pause the adaptive field line item of the project and allow the city to come back with other alternatives. That was the motion.
And it was seconded, you said?
Yes.
Second.
Okay.
So why don't we vote on that? The only process is if it does fail, we could do something different. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against, opposed?
No,
Two, is it two?
Two,
Three.
three. Dr. Davis, how did you vote on the? Okay,
That's 4-3. Motion approved.
Thank you.
With that,
no,
Gabe, anything else?
no, sir, that's all we have on the
Thank you,
agenda
everybody.
today.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, happy to go by.
Oh, they